Yeah, it's me again from Defra. A lot of people have said that I was quite brave to speak up earlier, so I'm beginning to wonder if I should sleep with one eye open this evening. But moving on to the virus. As we heard in the last presentation, tomato brown rugose fruit virus is having a significant impact in the countries where it has been introduced, and importantly, it could have a significant impact on tomato production in the UK. And for this reason, the UK has been particularly proactive in advocating stronger measures at the EU level for this virus. And partly because of this, I'd like to think the EU has approved new EU measures very quickly. In fact, it's been one of the quickest turnarounds of any pest going through the EU Commission. And I'll be going through those new EU measures in this presentation, as well as what statutory action we are likely to take in the event of an outbreak of the virus. And as a bonus, something you probably haven't really heard much about in the last few days, months, years, I'll be talking about Brexit. What is likely to happen in a no-deal scenario and what will happen in a deal scenario. I will be a clairvoyant. So I have put together some background slides as well, but because of the previous presentation, I'll probably go through those quite quickly, but I will pick out some important points on those. So yeah, as been said, it was first found in Israel in 2014 and subsequently in Jordan in 2015. And in the last couple of years, it's been popping up in more and more countries. And 2 points I want to make with regards to its distribution. Because of the sporadic distribution of the virus, it is very likely that it is more widespread than we know it is, and there have been anecdotal reports from other countries, including the Netherlands, so that's something to be aware of. And the other point I want to make on this slide, obviously, we have had an outbreak in the UK in a tomato glasshouse in the south of England. Eradication measures were applied. The crop was destroyed, the glasshouse was cleared, cleaned, disinfected, and is now being left for about 14 weeks before a new crop comes in. And hopefully we'll be able to declare eradication of that virus following monitoring next year. Yep, the major host is tomato, but it has been observed on pepper in Mexico. And on tomato, it is having very significant impacts, as you saw in the previous presentation. Generally, in the outbreaks that we've seen, around 10 to 20% of the plants have shown symptoms, but there are records of 50% in China and almost 100% in Jordan. And unfortunately, it has been introduced into Europe, into Germany and Italy, and more recently in the UK. I won't go through this in great detail. So it has been found in Germany, in the Western region. Eradication measures were applied, and following monitoring in 2019, it was declared eradicated. They did not find it. It's a similar situation in Italy. Eradication measures have been applied, but we are just waiting the results from those eradication measures. So what is the risk to the UK? It's already got into the UK, but what are the major pathways of introduction? How could it further come in? There are two major pathways, and that's plants for planting other than seed, and this is a particular issue because when the plants are young, symptoms aren't expressed as obviously as when they are older, so it can be moved in trade. Even if you inspect the plants, you won't know the virus is there. The second major pathway is on seed, and we do get a lot of seed in from third countries into the European Union. I've also put fruit as a long-distance pathway. Because of the mechanical transmission, it can be moved on fruit, but this is a far more unlikely pathway of introduction because there's a limited means of moving from a fruit onto a growing crop of tomatoes. While we're talking about spread, it can also move on tools and people, and more recently we found that it can be transmitted by bumblebees. They're no longer the innocent insects that we all know and love. But thinking back to those long-distance pathways, does the current EU legislation cover those pathways? No, it does not. So the current legislation is that solanaceous plants for planting other than seed are prohibited from countries outside of Europe and the Mediterranean. But when you think back to the distribution on the map, that would only cover China and Mexico. It doesn't cover all those other countries. And particularly thinking if it's more widespread than we currently know. Seeds can also be imported from all of the virus's range. There is some slight protection there that the seeds must be acid extracted or have undergone equivalent measures, but this is only likely to be partially effective. And so that is why the UK has been pressing for strengthened EU measures. And as I said, it's been one of the quickest turnarounds of any pest. The Italian pest risk assessment for the virus was considered in June of this year, and the new EU measures were approved in the following month. That's very speedy, particularly for the EU Commission. And these measures will come into force on the 1st of November of this year. And the date has not gone unnoticed. So even if the EU and all the rest of the member states want to enjoy these measures without us, we're still going to apply them anyway. Even if we leave the EU on the 31st of October, we will be transposing these measures into our national legislation. And what do the measures say? So first starting, what are the requirements for the National Plant Protection Organisation? And Defra provides that function in the United Kingdom. So there are three things. We need to check tomato and pepper plants for planting at the point of entry at the border or at the place of destination when it is imported. We will have to carry out annual surveys for the virus. And if we do find the virus in the UK, then we will have to inform the affected grower or business or whoever of the suspected presence of the virus, the consequences and risks of having that virus, and also what measures they should be taking to prevent the establishment and spread of that virus. And I'll go through those measures later in this presentation. But probably of more relevance to people in the room is the requirements for industry. I should note with this slide, in the packs it is incomplete. This is the correct version. I apologize for that, and it will be sent out after this meeting. So, I've split it into seeds and plants for planting other than seeds for ease. If you want to move seeds into the European Union, then the seeds must be accompanied by a phytosanitary certificate, and you must fulfill one of the following requirements. You must either get your seed from a country free of the virus. So this simply means that there have been no reports of the virus in that country through general surveillance, government reports, research, general quarantine surveillance, but you don't need to have specific surveys in those countries to show that it is free from the virus. The second option is to originate in an area free of the virus. So this means that even if there's a country where the virus is present, but there might be an area within that country that is free of the virus. And in this case, you do have to do specific surveys for the virus to show that it is not present in that area. And you also have to put measures in place to ensure that the virus will not move into that area. And the third option is to have the seeds officially sampled and tested negative for the virus. It's pretty similar if you want to move the seeds within the European Union, say from France to the UK, except instead of a phytosanitary certificate, it will be moved with a plant passport. And then there's only two options: originate from an area free of the virus and sampling and testing. There isn't a country-free option in that case. Moving on to plants for planting other than seed. If you want to move those into the EU, again, you require a phytosanitary certificate to move them into the country. And the first two options are the same as for seed, a country-free option and an area-free option. And then there is this third option that they must originate in a registered production site known to be free of the virus based on inspection. And those plants must be derived from seeds that come from an area free of the virus, or they're officially sampled and tested negative for the virus. Again, it's pretty similar for movement within the EU, plant passport rather than a phytosanitary certificate, and there are only two options, area freedom or the originating production site free. So now what you've all been waiting for years, in fact, Brexit. And it's first looking at the no-deal scenario. So I want to talk to you about this in general terms. So what is likely to happen for all trade, but also linking it to the new EU measures that I've just described where appropriate. So if you want to import plants and plant products from third countries, then it will remain as is. There will be no change. If you want to import unregulated plants and plant products from the EU, again, there will be no change. It will remain as it is now. If you want to import regulated plant products from the EU, then again, the list of regulated plants and products remains the same as it is now. But the only difference is that you require a phytosanitary certificate rather than a plant passport when importing these plants and plant products. So we've tried to take a fairly pragmatic view that even though we will be separate from the EU once we leave, we will treat them pretty much as they have been before to minimize any hassle. Third country transit. So if you have a product that moves from a third country into a European Union member state, say Germany, and then moves into the UK. If we leave with a no deal, then there is no requirement for the EU to do a plant health inspection upon entry into the European Union. And so in those cases, we will treat those plants and plant products as third country origin, and we will have to do the inspection in the UK. Now, just as a point of clarification, if those plants and plant products come into a roll-on, roll-off port, so allows easy movement of trade, then we wouldn't do the inspection at the border, we would do it at the place of first arrival.